Welcome to Enterprise Design's Industry Insights, where we identify key topics in the commercial real estate industry. I'm Ann Weston, Director of Design Services.
And I'm Jessica Green, Director of Client Services. For this series, we're discussing market trends with Dallas-based commercial real estate professionals.
What do you see any future challenges for the commercial real estate industry in Dallas? And I know that that's a loaded question, but
no, it's perfect. I'm kidding. I would start to say that I would rather be in Dallas than I would in a lot of other markets, because Dallas is still seeing such good population growth, and as long as that keeps going, population growth, employment growth is the fuel for the office business of population, which I'm interested in. So I think being in Dallas is you're kind of getting a head start on everything else. Typical challenges, I think we're trying to figure out how the work from home piece evolves in how that goes. And for me, when I start thinking about the work from home component, I think about, first of all, we're only talking about 50% of the workforce anyway, because approximately 50% of the workforce doesn't have an option of working from home. I can't work from home. The property management team can't work from home. The engineer can't work from home. The security guard can't work from home. So there's a component there that you got to it gets a lot of play because it's important, but it gets a lot of play. And I'd seen some data the other day that said pre-pandemic in the office usage was about 3.5 to 4 days a week. So between travel and sick days and different things. So it wasn't like everybody was at the desk 5 days, all day, every day. So, when you start kind of looking at that and you start thinking about what I'm hearing now is kind of the current kind of 3 days a week, kind of coming in. And I think that's what people are probably, trying to design to now and try to, see how that works. And I think that's still going to evolve because I still think that, I don't want to be a downer on it, but I think as you start to see, which we're starting to see firms start to lay off people. And I think, I don't know, if I was a employee, just common sense tells me the first person that I could let go is going to be the person that's not coming to the office. Mm-hmm. The person that I have no personal connection with, right. I've never met this person in person, you know what I mean? Where we're, have just had two-dimensional, in Zoom call kind of Teams meetings environment. So I think that's, competition always, I think, forces some things to happen. I think it may bring some people back to the office.
I agree. I do think that there is kind of a competition level inside the workplace where, if you're working from home all the time, maybe you're doing your job, you're doing it really well, but you're not seeing, the investment from your company and, maybe your value, what you think it is, you should be seeing promotions, salary increases, bonuses, all of that. But like you said, if you're not visible, even though you're doing your job, maybe you're doing it really, really well, that may just not be seen. And, a lot of the workforce is kind of realizing, hey, I'm not seeing, my movement upward, what is that? Why is that? And it's because, every company is like that relationship that you like to have with everybody else. And it's, you really want to make sure that you're touching base with all of those people, on your team, on the management level, and even above that to make sure that you are, trajectory is upward. And, a lot of that just is on a business level. And I think people are starting to realize that. And, I think there still is that hybrid. I think people will still have the flexibility. I think a lot of it will hopefully just be, we're all adults. We all know how to work. We're going to be in the office when we need to get things done. If I need focus time at home, I can do that too. But maybe have a little bit of crossover where people are in the office on certain days. So you get the collaboration, you get the FaceTime with everyone, that you're not missing someone because the days that you've picked are different from what they picked, right. Which I think is really important just so you do have, full office communication, full office visibility. So we are seeing a lot of that. And, we've had a lot of questions from our clients about hoteling and, is that still a thing? Or is everybody moving to private offices, which I think, people were really scared and, moving more to private offices or larger cubes after 2020. But, we're really seeing a lot of flexibility a lot of variety. It really is based on, who the company is and, how they work. And as long as we're incorporating flexibility into their corporate workplace so that they can adapt for the future, then, really they're kind of set up for that long-term goal anyway.
Right.
And, hopefully, a renovation or, some updates to the office will help kind of bring the employees back and them want to be there, which is also really important.
And I think that's another huge part of it. Just to talk about the work from home component, I am a firm believer that the corporate ladder is in the office. It's not virtual.
Right.
And so, I think you express to your employer what your ambition level is essentially. And I want to make sure I put an asterisk next to this. I totally get there are probably some people that have an immunocompromised situation or something that, but that's a very, very small percentage of the population. But for the most part, it's, people that come to the office, they're going to, I think they're going to end up getting better assignments. They're going to end up getting promoted because people form a personal relationship with them. Our business is an apprenticeship. So at the end of the day, I don't know how you would learn, to be a leasing agent. You couldn't because it's not a job you could do online or virtually, but I just don't know how I've learned more in the car going to a meeting and in the car coming back from a meeting or just somebody saying, hey, do you got lunch today? You know what I mean? Than just being in the meetings. And so I think that element of it is really critical. Not to mention that if you're in your 20s and 30s, the network you build is what serves you in your 40s and 50s. And I just don't know that you can build a network that doesn't have any personal, contact, that you don't get to know the people kind of on a more, personal level, that you go have a drink with them or go to lunch with them, or, that you.
It's a growth aspect too. You learn a lot of different perspectives on life and just a lot of different things, honestly.
Well,
so even outside of your current industry or business.
Yeah, one of the
you're in.
best op-ed pieces I've seen was Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal, and she was just talking about how work is where society is integrated for the U.S. It is, otherwise, if you're just on a phone, Zoom calls all day, well, then you can tailor the rest of your social experience, into whatever you want it to be, and they may just end up being, a silo of
Right.
what you want to hear. Whereas when you go to the office, you get exposed to all kinds of different people. So I think there's a societal impact of it that's better. Not just the selfish from a guy that leases office space, but
But it's an interesting topic, and it's interesting to bring up. So, speaking of technology, how has the development of technology in commercial leasing industry created efficiencies for leasing, would you say?
Yeah, it's funny. I had lunch with a buddy of mine yesterday, and it was him and his team. And he said, hey, if you get free for lunch, come join me. So I went and joined him. And his team is, I guess we're 8 of them, and they're anywhere from 1 year to 10 years in the business. And this topic just came up, in the course of the conversation. And, technology on our side of the business, for me and him, who had been in the business a long time, thinking back to, when somebody wanted to do an office survey, they'd look at the Black's Guide, which was a book that came out quarterly that had all the office listings in it. And you would call these people and see if they had the space, and then they would fax you the floor plan. And then you would run all that off and put it. I know that makes me sound like a dinosaur. I see you laughing when I said, do you know what a fax is? But you just thinking through the process of how cumbersome that was. And today you're running a CoStar search. It's pulling all the data. Most of the floor plans are online, except for the good leasing agents like me that want to make you call them so they know you actually have a prospect. But that's tongue in cheek for everybody that's watching this. But just how that kind of just technology from that piece, just the transmission of documents and how you're able to take the information, and then how we're able to, like I was talking about how we look for submarkets that we want to be in. We're able to take that absorption data and manipulate it so that we can fine tune it down to what we want to see exactly. So all of that is I think a huge change in it. I think virtual tours, I think on the architectural side, the rendering ability is, just unbelievable now. You're looking at a lot of stuff you look at, you're almost like, hey, is that the real picture, or is that a rendering? So I think that's from that point, it's been good. And then just executing leases, things like that, where you can transmit the documents, you know what I mean, on a PDF as opposed to having to overnight, the lease to somebody and then get their comments and come back and all that. So it's really sped up, I think, the transaction process. There's still some elements which is it's frustrating for tenants sometimes and brokers sometimes because, if you think about, we're speeding up all the transition of the documents and all that, but the lawyer still has to make all the comments. The space plan still has to be put in. Somebody still, the architect, when you're doing CDs, the engineer still got to, there's a lot of the work is still, it's being aided and facilitated electronically, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty labor-intensive business. When people get used to kind of what I call the microwave, solution where I can look up anything on my phone right now and get the answer, like that, where everybody still wants that, but it's like, yeah, no, my attorney's busy, she's going to have to, I think she's going to get it to me in the next day or two, so, but she's working on probably 10 other deals that aren't mine either, but, so, I mean, so it's, it's still a very labor-intensive business. But technology's great. And I think the virtual tour stuff's interesting. I haven't really gotten involved in it yet because I'm not certain. I don't know. I'd be interested to get your
I
feedback on that
definitely think
too.
people still want to go see the
I
space.
do.
It's just like
If it was
looking
me
at pictures of
personally,
a
I'd want to.
house. It looks one way, when you're looking it up on, the real estate website.
Right.
But then once you get there in person, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
This isn't what I was expecting. So I think people still really do want to see it in person. I think, it's a tool that helps. And it helps, especially with larger spaces to really be able to kind of navigate and say, okay, it's already got this, it's already got, some of the bones maybe where you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. But, people really do still want to go and see everything in person.
And I agree with that. Like you still go see it, but it's nice to have that tool to look at. And be like, okay, it fits a lot what I want in there, but let me still go look at it because I'm going to be making this investment. Right. I want to make sure it's completely what I'm looking at.
Yeah. And then it's interesting to me too because it's most of that stuff is on CoStar, which is brokers have to subscribe to have it and all that. So I think we do still have I don't think brokers want to get people out looking at spaces on their own. You know what I mean? Hey, I saw this online.
Right.
I'd like to come by and look at it. I think they
Exactly.
so there's a certain element of that I think will keep that from happening.
I agree. Absolutely.
Well, our last question is, what are some of the best resources that your A&D partners, which I know we talked about renderings, but, do you have other things that, your A&D partners can provide for you in regards to commercial real estate?
Yeah, I think, as we're talking about when we're looking at projects, I'm a success leaves clues guy, so I'm always looking to see who's doing well, what they're doing, on a building basis. If somebody's having success, hey, what did they put in there? But I think from an architectural standpoint, the architects staying on top of that. And so when we're looking at buying a building and we call you and talk to you, you could come look at it and, kind of tell us what's resonating with tenants, in today's market. And I still get that from you guys also. I mean, Elizabeth Palmer, who's my space planner at IP3, who's awesome, by the way.
She's wonderful.
She'll send me stuff every now and then. She sent me something the other day to say, hey, you guys ought to think about this while you're working on IP3.
Yeah.
So I think stuff, things like that, ideas and just how, programming that works good, interesting idea, design ideas that somebody's doing, just kind of keeping all of which stuff you do anyway. So it's not a big, epiphany here. Yeah. But and on the planning side, it's being responsive and producing good plans and having a real good understanding of kind of budgets at some level also, so that you're not designing something that for a tenant we can't afford, in the TI package. So there's kind of the symbiosis that kind of goes with that. But I think that's where we.
Great.
That's where we, get the most, where we think the value add for architectural and
And I
design
do
groups
love
are.
going to the buildings if you're
Yes.
looking at something, that's really where I like to kind of come in and say, okay, you're looking at this, maybe we walk around a little bit, look at those other entries, because, some of the things that we're finding is that some of these buildings have, hidden some of those items because they wanted to put tenants in. And if there's a way that we can kind of restructure that point of entry, or, can we get multiple points of entry to really connect the building, not only to kind of the front of the building, but what's behind the building? Is it, a center of Dallas that you really want to be connected to? Is it the design district? Is it, the arts district? Is there something that you really want to connect it to? And can we figure that out and make that happen?
Yeah, no, and that's important to create a narrative for the asset sometimes too, when you're trying to find what that center point is and how you're connecting to a certain element, if it's a neighborhood or architectural feature of the building or something like that. So, no, it's I'm a big believer that design matters, because I think that ultimately it's the programming of the amenities is important as well, but the design of them and how it's executed, I think ultimately is where you end up winning at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Well, we really appreciate, all the time and, obviously your partnership, because we do work with you on quite a bit. So thank you so much for your time today.
This was
Yeah.
wonderful insight, so thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for tuning in to Enterprise Design's Industry Insights video podcast. Please follow us and subscribe to our channel, or visit us on our website at enterprisedesign.com.
And look for our teaser video highlighting the next episode. We look forward to seeing you then.